Hello everyone, my name's Victoria Scott and you're joining me in my very glamorous writing shed where I write fiction, but I also teach journalism. I've had a career for, shockingly now, 2 decades in print, radio and television journalism, and I now teach the excellent NCTJ diploma. And as part of this, I often am asked for advice for people who are starting out considering becoming journalists. So what I thought I'd do is I will put together a list of top tips. I've asked my journalism colleagues for some as well. So you've got in here some tips from a broad range of journalists on how to get started. Let's go. Okay, tip number 1. And I'm going to let you into a secret here because I really needed this early on in my journalism career. And that tip is develop an ability to bounce back, develop resilience. And you're going to look at me and you're going to listen to me and go, I can't do that. That's just not me. And the thing is, you've got to fake it till you make it. So you are going to have lots of knockbacks. Journalism is an incredibly competitive career. When you're a freelancer, if you're pitching stuff, you'll get told no or just ignored all the time. And quite often you'll apply for jobs where there's lots of competition and you won't get in. And I'll let you, as I say, into a secret. I didn't get into the first journalism course I applied for. I failed the news quiz. In fact, back in the days, and I am this old, before the internet really helped you prepare for these things, I didn't even know there was going to be a news quiz. And I wanted to be a journalist, but I didn't really read newspapers enough. I didn't watch enough television news. And I didn't know the names of the shadow cabinet or the Prime Minister of Norway or whatever it was at the time. So I came home, had a really serious cry. And then the next day, I took a really deep breath and I went to the newsagent and I bought a whole load of newspapers and I looked on the government website and I got the names of all the shadow cabinet and the cabinet and I learnt them. And when I went to my next journalism assessment, I was ready. So frankly, it is about faking it. It is about brushing yourself off and just kind of going, you know what? I got rejected yesterday, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be rejected today. And I'm going to keep coming up with these ideas and I'm going to keep learning and I'm going to keep reading. And next time it will be me. Next tip, read widely, listen widely, watch widely. If you're going to be a journalist, you need to get that news writing, that tone and the variety of tones and styles in your head. I'm often asked when I'm teaching, how can I improve my writing? And actually, you do that by reading and consuming and understanding what it means to write a news story. I can teach you the pyramid structure of a news story or where you might best put a quote, but actually that tone, that voice that you work out for yourself, that's something you get from reading newspapers from not just your regional or your nationals, but both international ones, a variety of different outlets. And I'm talking about maybe tabloids and then broadsheets and standalone news sites so that you get a feel for the different varieties of styles out there. And also at the same time, you'll be absorbing all of that information, which should you come across the dreaded news quiz when you're applying for a master's or a postgrad or some kind of NCTJ training, you will have that in your head already just by osmosis, just because you've done your reading and you love news. And it is something that you can learn. It isn't something that you have to have innate in you. You can just have decided one day, like I did really, to suddenly really absorb that news. So start now. Next tip is to take an accredited course. I teach, as I said, on the NCTJ course at Kingston University. It's part of the journalism masters there. I also lead the NCTJ diploma course at Sutton College in South London. Now, the amazing thing about the NCTJ course and similar courses are that they are immensely practical. They can be done very quickly. They can be done in as little as 18 weeks, although trust me, that's a really intense 18 weeks, but you can do it in that short period of time. So you don't have to devote 3 years of a degree to it. But what you need to do is give it your heart and your soul. It is hard. Shorthand will exhaust you. I warn you now. However, yes, you learn, as I've mentioned, shorthand. You mentioned media law, and that's vitally important to stop you getting sued, and to make sure you write legally sensible copy. You'll learn public affairs, which is all about what our taxpayers' money does, how government works, local government. You have no idea how important local government is to your daily life, trust me. You'll be voting in local government elections when you do a PA course. And essential journalism, so you will learn all about how to write really good news copy. So take a good course, invest your money wisely, and employers will love you because you've got all the skills they need to hit the ground running. Next tip is to keep an open mind. You might start out with an idea that you want to read the 10 o'clock news. I mean, I did. I wanted to be Hugh Edwards, and trust me, I mean, you know, no one is going to be Hugh Edwards unless they're actually Hugh Edwards. So it was a pointless dream. But keep your mind open, because you might find that when you start off in one thing, actually you prefer it more. So I put a call out on Twitter, and someone replied and said, you know, I kind of really wanted to be a beauty journalist. And then I ended up in business to business journalism, writing for magazines, and I love it. And that's the thing. There are whole corners of journalism you haven't even imagined yet that you might find yourself in and adore. I ended up producing television news, which really wasn't something I'd thought about at the beginning, but it was exhilarating, adrenaline filled. I got to meet some extraordinary people, ask them some extraordinary questions, and it was a real position of privilege, and I'm so glad I did it. The next tip is from a wonderful journalist friend of mine called Jill, who freelances for a broad range of publications, and that was pick up the phone. Loads of us now are frightened of the telephone, and I read stories about that every day. And even so, I mean, I make far fewer calls now than I used to. But in journalism, sometimes you really need to get an answer now. Or maybe you just need to listen to someone's tone of voice to really kind of get a feel for who they are and what they're saying. Picking up that phone means you'll get an answer immediately, means that you won't be waiting for someone to send you a WhatsApp or an email back. Email interviews are a thing. They do happen, but they're very dry. You can't ask spontaneous questions. You can't go with the flow. So pick up the phone. Video calls are also brilliant. In these COVID days, as I'm recording it, we're still in the COVID pandemic. And actually, just speaking to somebody via whatever video call app you have allows you to get an immediate response from them and see how they are feeling about your questions and to judge where you should go next. So face-to-face is always better in my experience. And on the phone, voice contact with someone and getting that answer now is always good. That also goes, by the way, for when you're applying for jobs. If you see a job advertised, pick up that phone, take a deep breath, obviously. It is a bit scary when you're ringing someone you don't know, and say, hello, I'd like to talk to the person who's recruiting for this job. And then you can have a brief chat with them and see if there's anything in particular they're looking for. And there's a good chance they'll remember you. So always give that one a try. Let's talk more about those jobs. So you've picked up the phone and you've spoken to the person who's recruiting for freelancers or work experience placements or maybe a permanent job. So once you've done that, the other thing to do is do your research. Watch, listen, read, whatever it is, whatever their outlet is, just absorb all their content so that when you go in, you can say, actually, I really like this or this worked. People love being told that someone read and enjoyed what they wrote. So just a tip. But also so that if they say, you know, have you got any ideas? You can think, oh yeah, actually, I think this would make this better. Or I've got this other idea. Always have story ideas in the back of your pocket. I used to suspect that people used to recruit sometimes just for these ideas. And I'm sure that's not true. But I do think they find people who've got ideas very exciting. So watch, listen, think, what can I add to this station or to this program? What else can I suggest? And have those ready before you go in for an interview. Okay, so you've got that job, you're in that job, it's your first week and you feel like the proverbial duck out of water. We've all been there and it's incredibly stressful and difficult. What you need to remember is that everyone started from the beginning at some point or other, and asking questions is always good. It's so more important than making a mistake. And this actually happens even later in your career, 2 decades on, when you're interviewing someone and then you suddenly think, actually, they've just said something that I didn't understand. They've referred to some technical point, some acronym that I didn't quite get. And instead of trying to be cool and going, yeah, and thinking, oh, I'll Google it afterwards, just ask. There is no such thing as a stupid question, and you will feel so much better if you don't get it wrong, okay? So always ask. Ask your colleagues, ask your interviewees. Better ask now than regret it later. I'm going to finish on 2 of my favourite tips just for news writing. Again, as I say, I often get asked by my students at Sutton and at Kingston, how can I improve my news writing? Number 1, Write it as if you're talking to your nan or your mum or your dad or just one person that you choose who doesn't know masses about what you're writing about. Always think of your reader, not the press officer you spoke to, not the editor that asked you to write the thing, and just think about what that person that you're imagining you're writing for wants to know. You've got a whole load of information in front of you, but what there is the most important thing? That'll be the top line. And then it goes down. And what is another interesting tidbit, but not the most vital thing? Maybe that's the thing you put last. Think about how you would, in a cafe, over dinner, talk to your friend, your partner, about that story. And I promise you that's going to really help you with structure. Last one for now, and again, as I said, it's another of my favourite writing tips, is to read your copy out loud. If you're in a busy place, you can sort of whisper it to yourself. I know you might feel a bit self-conscious, but frankly, it's the best way of picking up whether what you've written is a word salad or not. And if it flows well from your mouth and you're not tripping up on your words, then you've probably written nice, tidy, clean copy. But if you're stopping and you're falling over your words, you've written unnecessary words in there. And you'll know, if you've done a journalism course, and if you're one of my students, you'll know this too, I will say what words don't need to be there, and there will be quite a few. So look at it again and think, actually, you know, that doesn't really flow very well, and have another go. So always read out your copy. So I'm going to leave it there, and those are some tips for you if you're a budding journalist. Definitely look into an NCTJ course if you want me, and you might not, fair enough. I'm at Sutton and at Kingston. And if not, just ask in the comments underneath, and I'll try and answer any other questions you've got. But more than anything, remember to give it your heart and soul, because journalism is a very difficult career in lots of ways, but also immensely rewarding, and just something that I have never regretted pursuing, ever. So good luck with it, and I'll be back soon.